Alright, I want to talk about the Linux command line this week. There's a lot to talk about, so I just want to show you some of the basics. So we're talking about in Linux, I've got my virtual machine running here. When we're talking about command line, it's also called the terminal. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to open it and then do a few things in it. Best way to open it is just right click out on the screen on the desktop and do Open Terminal. So in the command line, there's also a command line in Windows that's similar. You have to type in the commands, so you have to know the commands, you have to know the syntax of the commands, and how to type them in properly. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to show you the first command I'm going to show you is the ls command, which lists things in a directory. So if I do ls, press enter, it's going to list everything in my home folder. So notice my current directory, when you open up the terminal, is your own home folder, and this shows me what's inside of it. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about ls in just a minute, but the next command I want to show you is the cd command to change the directory. Suppose I don't want to be in my home folder, I want to be somewhere else. So to change your directory, for example, I'm going to change it to a directory that I know has a lot of stuff in it. It's cd is the command, and then you put a space after that, and then you put the name of the directory you want to go to. So the bin folder is on the root in Linux, so I'm going to do / and then bin. If I just do bin, it's not going to take me there. I need to go to the root, because I'm currently in my home, and then go to bin. So notice now it shows me that I'm in the bin folder here in the command prompt. So again, that's cd followed by the name of the directory you want to go to. Let's get back to that ls command thing for a minute. The reason I went to bin is I want to show you one other thing you can do with the ls command. So I'm going to do ls again, and it's going to show me everything in this bin folder. And I wanted to do this folder because it has a lot of stuff in it. So you can add different things to these commands, and I just want to show you how to add one thing, which is like a filter. So for example, if I wanted to see everything in the bin folder that started with the letter D instead of just everything listed here, the way to do that is you do ls again, and then you do space, and then you do the letter or letters you want to look for, followed by an asterisk. So if I want just the things starting with D, I'll do ls space D asterisk. If I run that, notice it's a much shorter list of things. Instead of all these things in the bin folder, now it's just listing the things that start with D. Alright, so that's regular ls versus an ls with a wildcard. Alright, so I want to show you another thing about cd, which kind of ties into working in this command line or in this terminal. So what I did is I just did cd with nothing after it, and it took me back to my home folder. But the reason I want to do that is, if you remember in this home folder, I could go to my desktop or to my documents or something like that. So remember, you do that by going cd space the name of the thing you want to go to. So I'm going to put in desktop here. Notice it says it can't find it. The reason is, in Linux, everything is case sensitive. So if I put lowercase desktop, it's going to look for only uppercase desktop. So it's case sensitive, it's very picky. So if I do cd desktop capital D. Now notice it takes me there. So just be aware of that when you're doing anything in Linux, not just the cd command, but anything you do is going to be case sensitive. Another thing to watch out for, let me just go back to where I was, is obviously when you're working in the command line, you could misspell stuff. So if you type something in and it gives you an error, watch for that as well. Alright, so I'm going to get back to the desktop because there's a few more things I want to show you how to do in the command line. So far we've learned how to change directories with cd. We've learned how to list the contents of a folder using the ls command, and also how to do that with a wildcard. Next thing I want to show you how to do is create a folder. So we can obviously use the GUI to do this, but you can also do it from the command line, so I want to show you how to do that. Keep in mind, I'm currently on my desktop, so if I create a folder, that's where it's going to create it. So that's kind of the preferred way of doing it. cd to the directory where you want to create the folder first, and then create the folder. So to create a folder in the command line, it's mkdir, which I guess means make directory, space, and then the name of the folder you want to create. So I'll just call it my folder or something. So notice that's the command, and notice since I'm on my desktop, it just created that folder that I told it to create. So suppose you wanted to create a folder inside that folder. There's more than one way to do it, but the easiest way is probably to cd to that folder first. So I could do cd my folder. Now I'm sort of inside that folder in the command line, so now if I do an mkdir, I'll call it folder 2 or something, it's going to create it wherever my current working directory is in the command line, which is inside my folder. So inside there we should see a folder called folder 2 now. So notice inside that my folder there's an additional folder there. So to create a folder, it's mkdir. But I also want to show you how to create a file from the Linux command line, and it's very straightforward. It's just this redirect command, which is the greater than sign, then a space, and then the name of the file. So again, I'm currently in my folder, so I'm going to go back to the desktop first and then create the file out there so I can see it appear. Alright, so we got the redirect or the greater than sign, a space, and then just the name of the file. I'll call it the file or something. So the mkdir makes a directory or folder, and the redirect space, name of the file, creates basically a simple text file. The reason I didn't call it .txt is because in Linux you really don't have file name extensions, but that's not really that important for this lab. So we know how to create a folder, we know how to create a file. I want to show you a couple other things. I'll go ahead and show you how to copy the file. Alright, so let's say I wanted to take this file and copy it into that my folder. So it would exist out here and also in there. So the copy command is a little different. It's going to be cp space. There's going to be two things you need to tell it when you do a cp command: what you're trying to copy and where you're trying to copy it to. So I'm trying to copy the file, and again, if you misspell it, it's going to say cannot find, as long as you spell it correctly. Cp space, what I'm trying to copy is the file, where I'm trying to copy it to would be this my folder spot. So after that, I'm going to put my folder. Doesn't really say it did it, but if we didn't get an error, we can assume it did. So I can double click my folder and see if it copied that file in there. And notice inside my folder, there's another copy because we did a copy command. So again, there's a lot to learn with command line, but we're trying to keep it basic. But I want to show you one other thing, and that is I've been using what's called relative paths. But suppose I had this file here and I wanted to copy it to my documents or some other location. So instead of using a relative path, I could use what's called an absolute path. Let me show you what I mean by that. I can do CP. Again, I'm on the desktop. The file exists there, so I could say the file. But maybe I want to copy it to my documents folder, which is in a different directory. So for the destination, or that second argument, first argument is the file name. For the destination, you would need to provide a full path, perhaps. So I'm going to show you where that documents folder is so you can kind of see what the full path would be. So I just open up the kind of the file browser thing that's on Linux, and I'm going to right click on documents, go to properties just to show you that full file path. So notice the full path is /, which is the root home folder, / my username, and then it would be / documents. So I'm just gonna keep this open so we can see that in a minute. So I've got CP file name, and then I'm gonna put / home / my name / documents. So the only difference between this CP command and this one is we're using what's called an absolute path instead of just the relative path to where I am. So notice I didn't get an error. So now if I go into my documents folder, we should see that file. But again, understanding where stuff is in Linux, my documents is actually on the root inside of a home folder, inside of a folder with my name, and then I have my desktop, my documents, my downloads, all those folders are in there. So that basically tells it that absolute path. Alright, one more thing I want to show you, and this one's takes some practice or takes a little studying, but it is changing permissions on a file, such as this text file, with the command line. I'll show you the command first, and then I'll try to explain it. So the command is chmod. That's to change permissions on a file. Then you got a space, and then you'll have a 3-digit number. Every time it's going to be 3 digits. I'm going to put 744, and in a minute I'll explain what that is. So you got chmod, a 3-digit number, and then it's another space, and then the file you're trying to change the permissions on. So I'm going to do the file here, which again is on my desktop, so this should work. So we're not going to really see anything happen here, but if we were to go look at the file permissions, we would see what happened. But what I want to explain is this 3-digit number. When you're changing permissions in Linux, you have 3 levels. You have yourself, which is the first digit, you have the group, which is the second digit, and you have others, which is the third digit. So the first 7 is for me, 4 is for group, and the other 4 is for others. Now let me explain what the 7 and the 4 mean. There's also, in addition to that, in addition to the yourself, the group, and others, there's kind of 3 levels of permission. There's read and write, and there's read, write, and execute. So again, this might take a little practice or thinking about a few times before you totally get it. But here are the numbers in Linux that represents read, write, and execute. So notice what happened here with the 4 is just read permissions. So notice that's where I got this 4 and this 4. So the group has only read permissions. So do the others. But notice I have a 7, which is basically full permissions. Read 4 plus 2 more for write plus 1 more, so that gives you 7. So that's just kind of the funky way that you assign permissions in Linux. But notice I gave myself, remember myself is the first digit, I've got full permissions. Here I'll show you another example. Let's do chmod again, and we'll do 747 on the file again. Alright, so remember the first 7 is for me, the second digit is for the group, and the third digit is for others. So notice this time around I gave myself full permissions, right? Read, write, and execute. The group has just read permissions, that's what the 4 means. And remember 7 is the read 2, 4, 2, and 1 added together is the full permissions, and that's for the others, right? Because that's the third digit. Let me give you one more example, maybe to try to make it a little more clear. Let's do chmod. Let's give myself full permission, which would be 4, 2, and 1, which would be 7. Let's give the other 2 6s. So now instead of, for me, I still have full permissions. That's the first digit, right? The second digit is the group. Notice instead of just read permissions, which is 4, now they have read and write, because we took 4 and 2, and that's for the second digit, so that means the group now has read and write permissions, but not execute. And same with the others. Remember, the third digit is the others.